Hi, everyone. Today we're going to talk in an episode about Serbs in America. We're going to talk with Mim Bizik. Mim Bizik is a well known Serb, I think the most popular Serb in America, well known in a Serbian community everywhere, from Chicago, Pittsburgh, New York, literally everywhere. And she's one of the person that preserve all the history. And me as a parish priest, your parish priest, I was so excited. Well, I came to your apartment for home blessing. Seeing everything here is like a beautiful uh, trace of Serbian existence in the United States. All the history is like a museum exploding in your apartment. And you show me all the old pictures from Serbs in America, and I was so inspired by you. And I was thinking these days that we really need someone to record this video and preserve everything that you have, all the knowledge that you have, all the history that you know, all the pictures that you show me. We need to leave the trace of that in ether. So, can you say something first of all to say something about yourself?
Okay, I'll give you my whole name.
Yes.
And my name is Milena. I was named after my dad because they kept thinking that I was going to be a boy, so they never thought of a girl's name, and they just added the A to make it Milena. Milena Mamula Carlo Bizik.
Very long.
Baba Mim. Hello,
No,
everybody.
aka Baba Mim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your family? What
Sure.
year and when your
Yes.
family came to United States?
Yes.
Uh,
My grandfather, Nikola Tesla, came by 1897, and my Baba Anja, who he married, but they didn't know each other then, except at the train station. She came November in 1900. My Carlo relatives, Karailovich relatives, they came in 1906 and 1912. And there's tremendous stories to tell with both of those. And because I grew up on the south side of Pittsburgh, um, everybody was Serbian or they wanted to be.
it was popular to
At
be
least
Serbian
I
back
thought
then.
that. I thought that. You know, the Serbian Club was on 25th Street. We lived on 25th Street. My grandparents lived at 25th and Larkins. My the Krajlovic ones, and my Mamula ones lived on 27th Street. So that's only 2 blocks away, like this little diameter and stuff like that. Whoops, 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 whoops. I thought that we stopped that.
Okay, don't worry
How
about it.
did
Just
how do
continue.
we? How do,
I'll do
I?
airplane mode. Please
Okay.
continue.
Okay. So what were we?
Growing up in Pittsburgh, South Pittsburgh,
Oh yes. So
and being popular to be
you can
Serbian.
imagine how close we all were. So I was born in 2618 Cary Way, but we had our first store at South 27th, which was only a half a block away from the Mill Gate, which was on Carson Street. And then, like I said, my Mamula relatives on 2716 Sarah Street, and it's only half a block from the store that we had, Carlos Confectionery. And my grandparents rented out their bottom floor at 2716 to the Steelworkers of America. So everything was just real close by. And as I walked to high school at 10th Street, South 10th and Carson Streets, we would walk down with, I had my German, Lithuanian, Polish, all my girlfriends were learning my deklamację of Otać pieno milo moje mesto moje draga. Ti si meni najmilije ovom svetom blago. But in the meantime, I didn't even know what I was saying. They didn't know what they were saying, but they all learned it. It was fun.
Yeah.
And like the thing is my mother and father. Everybody says to me here, they says, "Oh, when did you come to America?" And I says, "It wasn't me." I said, "My it wasn't even my parents that came to America. It says my grandparents came to America, but because I love this Serbian history so much, they think that I just to come."
Yeah, yeah, fresh off the boat. Can you tell us a little bit more about those first Serbs coming to America? That's an
Yes, yes,
extremely important topic for all the Serbs coming here.
yeah,
Uh, uh, Serbs coming in that generation of George Fisher, generation of Nikola Tesla, Mihajlo Pupin. I think that's important to know about our roots in
yeah.
the United States.
Well, George Fisher is the first well-known Serbian in America. We can't say that he was the first. So the Mallets, who were very good friends of mine, which are six great 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 grandchildren of George Fisher, George Sagic. They would like to say that it was, but we're not really certain. But for all the wonderful things he did, he was at the Texas at the
Revolution.
yeah,
Yeah.
Revolution. He when they built the Washington Monument, he helped lay the cornerstones.
Wow.
He represented the state of Texas. He was in California. He was just a phenomenal person. He spoke 16 different languages. Did so much. So we'd like to make sure that we honor his memory. And it was so nice that just a month ago, we were down in Spring, Texas, where my son got this award, humanitarian award. And Larry Mallet spoke about his great 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 grandfather to all the people in the lodge there. So that was very nice.
It was in Galveston,
Uh,
in Houston,
no, it was in Spring, Texas,
Spring,
yeah,
Texas.
which is like a suburb of Houston.
Oh, beautiful.
Okay.
That generation of George Fisher, by the way, George Fisher was one of the founders of Texas. And I didn't know that historical data about him putting the cornerstone for Washington Monument. Those kind of roots are really important for us here, so we can build the bridge from United States and maybe kind of try to rekindle those old relationship with Americans and start a new chapter in those kind of relationships.
Well,
So that's why I think
yeah, you should go to Washington D.C. with Mim Bizik because,
maybe that's the next
yeah,
episode.
because then I would say about the Washington Monument for George Fisher. Then when you go to the Smithsonian and you see Tesla's coil, there you
Oh
go,
my God.
and then you go to the World War II memorials and you see all of our Serbian heroes, Mitchell Page, and he's a Medal of Honor winner and everything. My uncle Chappie, he was with the Merrill's Marauders. This Mervosh. I mean, there's just so much. We could go from place to place. Oh, we even made our own history in 2017 for the 200th anniversary of the Constitution. My son was at the National Archives when they opened up the first GS Apple computer. This movie star was supposed to do this opening, and here he was indisposed. I'll say I won't say what happened to him, but anyway, my son was asked to take his place. He was 17 years old, and they had the program called "Would You Have Signed the Constitution?"
Mm.
So there we are. So we have even somebody at the National Archives that we can talk about.
Oh my God. And a lot of Serbs know that we had a Serbian flag in dedication of victory of the World War One, holding on
That's right, with President Woodrow Wilson.
Woodrow Wilson, which was the really good friend of Mihajlo Pupin, and we had our flag over White House. So
Yes.
that we know that, but I think that nobody knows about George Fisher putting the cornerstone in a Washington Monument. That's a really huge
Well, he was, yes,
historical
yes, yes.
moment.
He was a big Mason. They say they don't know for sure that he was there. I mean, he was there, but we're pretty sure that he laid the cornerstone.
Do you know anything about that generation of Serbs of Jacksonville in California, Galveston Church? I think that you know a lot of by the
Yes,
church
my
that it's
father was always there in Jackson, recording all the grave markers, the churches, etc. Jackson was the first church. Then Galveston was the second one that we know in America, and then McKeesport was the third.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
Saint Sava.
God bless them all. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. And can you tell us more about that generation? Is that generation of Nikola Tesla and Mihajlo Pupin?
Uh, everybody I know loves Tesla and Pupin almost like equally. Um, Tesla was, of course, he electrified the world, um, and he is still talked about today. Whereas Pupin has finally is like gone to the background a little bit, but yet nobody worked as hard as Pupin to make sure that everybody in America was for the Serbs in World War I. Um, that he would have these people come from Serbia to talk, and then he paid their expenses so that they traveled all the way through United States up to Canada. Even the Boy Scouts of America were saving money for the orphans of Serbia. And what was really unique is that I found the first Serbian orphanage in Moon Township, where I lived then. That was something else. That was before they moved the orphans to Libertyville,
Wow,
with Saint Marjaria. So
beautiful. Uh, Everybody knows that, and it's well known. Tesla is well known in the United States. If you go to New York or for my 40th birthday, me and my wife we went and stayed. You can stay in his room.
New Yorker.
Yeah, in a New Yorker,
Oh, you did
and
that.
they have in a basement a kind of like little museum about Nikola Tesla, but nobody knows significance of Mihajlo Pupin and how genius was Mihajlo Pupin.
He was
He
unbelievable.
was one of the most influential professors in Columbia University in New York, and I think for 40 years.
And
And
there's a hall named after him up there.
he was one of the founders of NASA. He was a genius, and he was
Aeronautics,
well connected.
first aeronautics board in the United States. Yes, he was
Nobody's
on the
talking
board.
about that, and his influence. That when they were on Paris conference after World War I, he was there. He was there
Representing us.
representing us,
Yes.
representing Serbia, and because of him, we have today Banat in Vojvodina. Because of him, we have the Serbia that we have today. The borders, when they were making the borders, he was there.
Do you know why the engineers loved him so much in America? Is because of the time that when he invented that long distance coil for the telephones. Um, he did that because he was a sheepherder, a sheep herder, and in
Yeah,
his Idwar,
Idvar,
and
yeah.
so he would be watching the things, and if a wolf or a coyote came by, they would take their staff and pound the dirt to let the villagers know down below that there was danger, and the people would come running up and everything. And he used that same um, mythology, I guess you want to say, when he did the long distance telephone for that took in resonance like that.
Amazing, amazing. While I'm driving in a Liquipa, there's a custom to put American heroes. Everybody they were involved in any kind of war, they put them on the poles next to the road. So I saw so many Serbian names. Can you tell us about that generation that was involved in a World War I, or
Okay,
generations before? How
wait.
was
What you have to do is talk about the Dobrovolci in World War I. That before America ever got involved in the war, they had these Serbian immigrants in America that wanted to go over and fight. And my mother's uncle, Stevel, who was one of the first founders of the Serb National Federation, he was one of those that went over with the Dobrovolcis. unfortunately, we don't have enough about the Pittsburgh Serbs who were volunteers, but we do know that he was one of them. But we know all about the Gary Serbs and the Chicago Serbs. They hired bands to take them to the train station, and hundreds of people would come out to see them go over. So they went and they fought with the Serbs. This is all before America got involved, and uh, so many of them died over there. But the ones that came back was my uncle Stevel, my mother's uncle Stevel. But here's what happened to him. Uh, he was the oldest one here in America. So there's Stevel, and then my grandmother was next, Anja Mamula, and then her brother Rade, and then finally they sent for Marta. You had to realize that in between, they just couldn't say, okay, come on over. They had to save that money for them to come. And it took years and years, but anyhow, they did. But um, what happened is when he came back, Rade died in a steel mill accident. He died like a day after he was injured in the mill. And he left behind a widow and 4 children. And then Marta died shortly after childbirth. And Stevel thought that he was responsible for them coming to America, that if they had stayed in their village of Yasenak, Ogolin, Gomirye Monastery, that everything would have been different, that they could have lived out the rest of their lives over there. So he took his family and he moved everybody back over to Yasenak. Unfortunately, during World War II, he and his son were killed. The daughters managed to escape to Belgrade and they became Red Cross workers. And I was so lucky to meet them when I went there in 1988 with my husband. At first, I didn't want to go. Nobody wanted to go to Yugoslavia because we were petrified of the communists.
Yes,
I mean that was a big
with a
thing here.
reason.
The good reason,
Yeah.
yes. And even when we went to the Hotel Metropole, this is I gave my husband for our 25th wedding anniversary a trip to Yugoslavia, even knowing that he never liked to fly. But but anyway, and so when we get to the hotel, in the hotel room was a red phone. And I says, oh my God, that's like a communist phone because of all these movies that they used to show us. And I was petrified. But he says, please let me lay down for 10 minutes. I says, okay. Well, after 5 minutes, I got antsy. So I'm looking at that phone and I finally picked it up and I said, and they said, hello. And I says, hello, Ovoje Milana Bizic. I says, I would like to contact Dr. Bogdan Grahovac. One moment, please. And I heard, oh, cripe, But then all of a sudden you hear this beautiful voice that says, Molim. And my God, all kind of goosebumps because it was just like my Baba talking. And this was her niece. This was her very niece. And so they says, Jestevi. I says, Hotel Metropole. She said in Serbian better than I could say this. She says, Toma will be there in 10 minutes. I said, get up, Gus, get up.
Beautiful
And
story.
we loved it. We just loved every minute after that.
Beautiful story. Can you tell us a little bit more about involvement of Serbs in the World War One and what happened after World War One? As a parish priest, I have a lot of contact with people telling me about their stories, how their grandmas and grandpas came to this beautiful country, and the huge immigration came after World War One, and they were coming between the wars, especially from Lika, from Dalmatia, from Kordun. A lot of people came from that.
They came around 1890s to 1920s were real big immigration things.
Yeah,
Yeah. And can I tell you how my grandmother came?
that's why we're here.
Okay, so she came on this train. She was from Baltimore. I guess they landed in Baltimore, and not everybody came through Ellis Island, And then she was on a train to the Union Station, and here she didn't want to get off, but her brother, this Uncle Stable that I was just telling you about, he said he wanted to recoup his $50 it would take for her to come over here. So he said to his fellow compatriots, whoever offers me her first $50 can have her hand. And so they're all there waving these $50 because they were all poor young men who had been here without any female companionship or anything. All they did was have hard work, and they wanted somebody who knew how to cook, that and who could raise their children and sing the same songs that they did, and teach the kids the lullabies, etc. And so that's why they were all waving their thing. And my grandmother didn't want to get off the train, uh, but they said you have to go. And so here she sees my grandfather, and he was like so tall. He was like a head taller than most of the other people at the time, and she didn't know him, except that she saw him every so often at the water where we get the water. So she says, "Okay, let it be him." And then 3 days later, they were married.
Oh my God, that
that's
was fast.
that's how that worked out so many times. Now, for my other grandparents, then Samoilo Karailovich, he was here 1906. So imagine 6 years he was a bachelor, and they had the priest in St. George's in South
In
16th
Pittsburgh,
Street,
Pittsburgh.
South 16th Street, and this was real smart of the priest. He knew his parishioners well, so he went back and forth to the old country 4 different times that I know of. And sometimes they spelled his name a little bit different, so that. But he brought back all these here women, and so he brought back my grandmother Babastana, who lied about her age. She said she was 21. I think she was really 29. but
Should
she
look
lived
good.
she lived to be 95, I think it was. So again, that those marriages worked out. They just worked out well.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Um, so for my generation, it's not known that Pittsburgh was a second stop after Ellis Island in New York. The generations and generations of Serb were coming fresh off the boat, immigrants coming to Pittsburgh. Can you tell us why and what was the next stop after Pittsburgh?
Yeah, and sometimes they went up to McKeesport because that, like I said, that was a thing first. But then they moved down to Southside because of the mill, the Jones and Laughlin steel mill. And like I said, I knew the mill all my life because we always lived right across from it. Even when we lived on South 13th South 27th Street was our first store. Then we went to California. Uh, when I was 3, Rosie was only like a half a year old and stuff like that. My father worked for the San Francisco Chronicle, and he got that job with Mila Logan, who was a very famous Serbian from California. Her husband was either the second or third person in charge of the paper there, and got him the job. And he loved it, of course, but then that was during the war years when all of a sudden, just like almost overnight, the United States changed course because of Churchill, and they abandoned Mihailovich and started putting all this wonderful stuff about Tito and blaming Mihailovich for a lot of things. Now, this is the greatest thing my father ever did for us. We didn't get any kind of monetary inheritance, but what we did get was that you stand up for what you believe in. And so he saw
As
how
all the Serbs
yeah,
did through the history.
yeah, he saw
Yeah.
how they were. This one fella was, I hate to say it, but he was a Croatian, and he kept on changing things that my father wrote, and he didn't like that. And then I said they start changing over to everything was going to be for Tito, and not for Mihailovich. And even with 2 little kids at that time, Alexandra wasn't born. He quit. He quit his job, and they came back to Pennsylvania because he couldn't stand the lies that they were saying. So
What about the life of the Serbs in Pittsburgh? Can you tell us a little bit more about the life of Serbs in Pittsburgh and what the Serbs left here? We were talking before we started the cameras about many things. Can you tell us a little bit what the trace Serb left here? Serbs left in Pittsburgh and Pittsburgh area. We have so many churches. We have the church where I serve, Olequipa, is from 1914, which is for America it's ancient history. So
yeah, I know.
yeah. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So you will love this story about the St. George Church in the South Side. That was on South 16th Street. When I heard about this, I just love this story. Uh, they bought the church from some other Presbyterians or something like that. I can't remember, but one of those different congregations. And here, the Serbs from Johnstown, PA, this Vukovic, he brought a whole uh, train full of people down to the station, to the railroad station, and they hired a band, and then they marched from the station all the way up to 16th Street with the band playing Mashilala, Mashilala, all that different wonderful. So yeah, oi Serbio, moja majko mila. So
Wow.
I love that story many, many times over. So then that was the church, and I think I started 1906. That was St. George. Then there was a split in 1930, 36, or 35, 36. Something happened where one of the parishioners argued with the priest for something, and then unfortunately his daughter died from burns that from the grandmother spilling terrible boiling water. Not that by it was all totally by accident, but she got all these burns and then she died. And there was such a bad rift there that they didn't want to bury the little girl, and she was there for a long time. So that's when the Saint Saba was formed, and they were on South 21st and Sydney Streets. So I had one set of parents in St. George's Church and one other set of parents in St. Saba's Church. I grew up in the St. Saba's Church. It was crazy because at the high school we were all together, and yes, Philip Visnich choir was very good, but at St. Sava's, but at the same time at St. George they had the Tamburitsins and stuff. It would have been nice, so much better. Serbs should never fight. Just forget those kind of things. Always stay together.
We have that on our emblem as a reminder.
Yeah.
Uh, in Pittsburgh, I've noticed that tamburica bands and folklore and all those cultural kind of groups were founded to preserve Serbian culture. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
For every memory I have, we were either at the Liberty Hall before the Serbian Club or Schiller's Hall, and we had all the different choirs. You see, the Serbian Singing Federation, they I don't know if they was started like in 1937, but before that, we were still. I wasn't born until 1941, but like I said, I remember all the different concerts in these different places. And then Pittsburgh was very fortunate in that we had the Pittsburgh Folk Festival. And every year, the Serbs would go sing over to the United We Sing at Christmas time, and we'd sing our Serbian songs, and we learned about all the other cultures. At the folk festival, you had every nationality there who would put on beautiful folklore dances, or singing, food, everything. Unfortunately, that has gone by the wayside, but in a way, it still carries on at the University of Pittsburgh, with the nationality rooms, and then they have something special at Christmas time.
I saw that we had a lot of mills in around the Pittsburgh area, and unfortunately, a lot of Serbs died in the mills. Uh, can you tell us a little bit more about how they grouped, how they create the clubs, Serbian clubs, or something to preserve Serbian culture and Serbian history and Serbian heritage. And I'm looking at the old pictures here
Oh,
that
yes.
you put here, and that census from 1910. Can you tell us a little bit more about how many Serbs we had before World War One? I saw that one of your panels that you prepared that I'm gonna upload is census from 1110, and Serbs are there, and they were called to participate in the census. And can you tell us a little bit about preserving Serbian culture and the number of Serbs? And this was the second station after Ellis Island. So what was the next step?
Where did they go after it? You said
Yes,
Chicago. Oh,
Gary.
Gary,
What
and
about
then Chicago.
Cleveland?
Oh yeah, Cleveland. But
Cleveland
I know so many were in Gary and in Chicago too.
is in St. George Church around the East Chicago
Hmm.
or South Chicago.
South Chicago,
South
I think.
Chicago,
Yeah,
Lansing.
they're the ones that I know the most because we would be singing. That's one of the best things about being in the choir, that we would travel and meet all the people. People here, they can't believe how many friends I have in Milwaukee, in Lackawanna, in Cleveland, and that's all because we preserved the through song and dancing and everything, all our beautiful heritage and culture.
I was fascinated. I always go to rehearsals of my choir. I want to keep sharp,
Yeah.
in tune with my choir, and I'm fascinated. They're like a third, fourth, fifth generation of Serbs in America, and they all read a Cyrillic or Serbian, and it was fascinating for me. I would propose a little break now, and then we can continue.
Okay.
Okay,
That's
thank you
good.
so much.
Okay. All right.